Okay, good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here. Brian Seaman, S-E-A-M-A-N, Niagara County District Attorney. Along with me here today are Superintendent of Police from Niagara Falls Police Department, John Faso, Captain John Conti of the Detective Bureau, Niagara Falls Police Department, and Mayor Robert Rustino. A charge is merely an accusation, and a defendant is presumed innocent until and unless proven guilty. Last week, the Niagara County Grand Jury was presented evidence, heard witnesses, and received evidence concerning events that occurred on June 3rd of this year in Niagara Falls. They heard evidence concerning an incident that occurred in a LaSalle neighborhood that day, and then also a further incident that occurred in the Rite Aid parking lot on Niagara Falls Boulevard between 80th and 81st Street in the city of Niagara Falls. It was the grand jury's duty to determine, number one, to consider and determine any charges related to pending charges in Niagara Falls City Court against Reginald Barnes, but also it was their duty to assess the use of force by police officers that day. Two police officers, Lieutenant Joseph Sibilia and Officer Gregory Paul, discharged their service weapons that day, striking Reginald Barnes, 29 years old, of Niagara Falls. At a previous time, at a press conference, there was some video released. You've all seen that. Shows Mr. Barnes with a knife charging at the police officers. The grand jury looked at all that evidence, and they determined that both Officer Paul and Lieutenant Sibilia were justified in their use of force that day. They determined that the level of force that they used was in accordance with the law, and therefore there will be no charges whatsoever against either of the officers. The grand jury also determined that and handed up an indictment against Reginald Barnes, charging 5 different counts, the first of which is a felony aggravated family offense. The second was resisting arrest, then criminal possession of a weapon in the 3rd degree, and finally the grand jury returned an indictment charging 2 counts of attempted aggravated assault of a police officer. One regarding Officer Dominic Sinise, and the second regarding Officer Paul. Reginald Barnes appeared in county court this morning before the Honorable Caroline Watasek, and he was remanded to the custody of the sheriff pending further court proceedings. Does anybody have any questions on the legal portion of it? At this point, I can't get into a lot of the facts and specific evidence, but I can address anything regarding the legalities. And then if not, I'll turn it over to Chief Faso.
Brian, did the officers testify in the grand jury?
So I'm not able to actually say who testified in grand jury or what they testified. It would be actually illegal to do that. So I can't say that. What I can tell you is that everybody in this case was given the opportunity to testify. Everybody who was involved was given the opportunity to testify if they desired to do so.
Can you talk a little bit about the nature of the call, or what they called the domestic scene, or what caused police officers to become engaged with this guy?
Sure, and Chief Faso may wish to address that a little bit more, but there was a call that day to a call of an unwanted individual in a yard that led to eventually this confrontation in the Rite Aid parking lot.
How helpful was the body cam?
The body cam footage, captured in vivid detail what those officers were facing that day. It was extremely helpful. I believe the grand jury found it extremely helpful in viewing what happened that day and who did what. Okay, I'll turn it over to Chief Faso if he has any comments at this time. Chief?
At this time, I just want to say that I'm thankful. I'm thankful for the DA's office for coming to this conclusion. I think from the body camera footage, you could see what my officers faced. It was, like I said before, it's every officer's greatest nightmare on this job, and now my focus is to get them back in and back to work.
It's a very stressful
John,
situation.
they all have to work on it.
Yes, they've all been cleared and they're all back to work.
It's a very stressful situation. How are they doing themselves?
They're dealing with it. It's more than just stressful. I mean, it's overwhelming at times. I've been talking with all the officers and keeping up on them, and it's not easy to deal with. It isn't, like a TV movie where, it's over and the next day you go back to work and forget about it. This is something that those officers will deal with for the rest of their lives.
Mr. Mayor, something like this would obviously be a PR nightmare for any city to have to deal with the shooting, officer-involved shooting. How do you assure the people in the community that this use of force on this individual, to be determined whether by the courts or not, how do you assure the community that this is justified and to quell any kind of backlash?
Well, I think that's precisely what the grand jury has been able to report out. I think that when you examine the method that this district attorney's office, and I want to thank District Attorney Brian Seaman and his staff, when you think about what they presented and the fact that they took the task of presenting the information regarding these officers and what they were confronted with, and allowed the community, represented by the grand jury, to take a look at it and then make a determination based upon what they saw and what the law is. I think that's the best method to indicate whether or not this particular incident was justified. Speculation, social media analysis, all of those things lead to more confusion, more disruption, and more discontent. I think the system has a method, and I'm happy that the district attorney's office presented this method, and as you heard from the district attorney, reported out.
Mr. Attorney, is there another court date set? What's happening next? What's the next on the line for this suspect?
Yeah, there's a future court date. It's July 18th, and it's just for further proceedings on the case. It's actually a compliance date for us to comply with our discovery obligations. That's what's for the 18th. But there'll be as any case, routine and normal court proceedings going forward.
Any idea what the level or extent of his imprisonment is? He was found guilty of some.
So I can tell you that the most serious charge is the attempted aggravated assault on a police officer, and that carries a maximum charge of 20 years in prison. Okay, once again, thank you everybody for coming this morning. Much appreciated.
How do you assure the community of transparency in this entire process from beginning to end? Does anybody can answer this on transparency in terms of the process? Because some folks said that the city dragged its feet in getting out the initial releases about the incident, and that gives the appearance of something that's being kind of held back or hidden.
Well, I think there's a difference between transparency and speed. Transparency is disclosing all of the information that's available to us and disclosing it in a method that allows you, the media, to report accurately on the facts and circumstances. So I believe that our activity in this case to make sure that we had the facts accurate allowed us, together with the body camera footage, allowed us to be transparent on the circumstances, transparent on the facts, to provide the media with the clearest and best information available so that you could report that to the community. It's important that in situations like this, officer-involved shootings, as you heard the district attorney and the superintendent of police indicate, these are not normal circumstances. And so when these happen, they are treated with great transparency as well as great accuracy. Because the key to this is making sure that as you go out to the community and report facts and circumstances, we want to make sure that we've given you all of the accurate facts that we can.
Superintendent, did they all three have body cameras? What was the situation?
The lieutenant did not have a body camera. Our road lieutenants do not have body cameras yet. I should say that the body camera system that we have at that time was brand new. It's still less than a month and a half old. So Officer Paul's body camera was initially knocked off, so that was useless. So we had Officer Sinise's body camera, which is what was released. So.
Talk about the body cameras a little bit. I mean, really gives people a view of what actually happened there, see for themselves, what the officer to deal with.
The body cameras are a phenomenal tool, and I'm so thankful that we had that new system. Our old system, the video wouldn't have been nearly as clear as this new system that we have, and I'm just thankful that they were up and operating for this incident.
Chief, are we going to make sure mandated every officer has a body camera?
We, at this point, every patrol officer has been issued and trained on our new body cameras.
What about the detectives?
Pardon me?
What about the detectives?
They are coming, and as well as the road lieutenants. Like I said, this is all brand new, so the equipment is still being processed.
Any other questions? Thank you.